From your point of view, is Eminem the king of hip hop?
No. Um, I think Eminem but you know what? I like Eminem though as a rapper. The first time I ever heard him back in the '90s, I thought he was a great artist. Eminem is as true of a lyricist as you're gonna see, and he's also great because he shows respect to those who came before him. So he's not Iggy Azalea or whatever. He's a guy that I think at the core of his heart, he's not a wigger, but he's not a white boy. He's just who he is. And to me, I think that Eminem, to some extent, is a little bit of a product of white privilege for two reasons. One, he does get a little bit of that Elvis effect. When you're a white rapper, you're as good as the black guy. People are gonna love you more because you're white. Same thing, Larry Bird. A lot of black guys were good too, but Larry Bird got some extra because he was white. Well, I think Eminem does get that Elvis effect, which it is what it is. I mean, a lot of the fans of hip hop are white, so it's a natural thing. The other thing about Eminem that I think is an artifact of white privilege is that Eminem gets something that a lot of black artists don't get. He gets to be a pure and true artist. Eminem, if you listen to his music, he raps about everything that's in his soul and in his spirit. There's not sort of this very programmatic, predictable, continuum of music that comes from him where he's always talking about the same thing. I went to the club, got drunk, met some hoes, made money, look at my car, whatever. Shot a nigga down today. That's not Eminem. Eminem is all over the place. He talks about getting high on drugs. He talks about wanting to kill his relatives. He talks about wanting to kill himself. He talks about whatever. And to me, I see that as true art because to me, art is something that should come from your soul. He's got what Andre 3000 has and some of the best artists that we've seen. And so what I see with a lot of other artists, though, who've become corporatized is just sort of the same old stuff, and it gets old after a while. I mean, fortunately, though, I think the music is changing a little bit, especially now the media is democratized. You're not sort of trapped by just what you hear on the radio. But for the most part, I don't think anybody can say that hip hop for the last decade has been good for black people. At least the corporate version of hip hop, in terms of what corporations are telling these artists to spit out on records, that hasn't really been good for anybody. And I think a lot of artists would agree with me on that.
Eminem sold 150 million albums. Jay-Z sold 100 million albums. By that yardstick right there, that would make Eminem the king of hip hop. Would you agree with that?
No, because album sales should never define who the best artist is. There are some artists who are so extraordinary that they could sell one record and everybody would still consider them to be among the best. A guy like Prince. A lot of people will tell you that Prince is better than Michael Jackson, even though I don't think Prince has sold nearly as many albums as Michael has. Right? Sade could disappear for a decade and come back and just spit on a record and it would be a hit because her voice is so angelic, so powerful, so beautiful. Same thing. Even in Hollywood, we don't judge the best actors or the best films by which one sold the most tickets. Although they can be correlated, they can be connected. Sometimes a really good movie also sells a lot of tickets, but sometimes a really bad movie sells a lot of tickets too, right? If you're looking at, just in terms of who the king of hip hop is, I think that would be decided more amongst, the hip hop purists, the hip hop community. I think if you're looking at who the king of corporate hip hop is, then you could say maybe Eminem is because he sold the most records. Remember, a corporatized version of an art form is not the same as the original art form. Corporate America is thinking in terms of dollars and cents. They're thinking in terms of packaging something so it can be sold and distributed and shared with a broader audience. Many of whom in that audience don't understand the root of that genre, right? When they went and grabbed the Sugar Hill Gang and slapped those guys together to represent hip hop, which I'm sure just infuriated people in the South Bronx who knew what real hip hop was. They weren't really thinking about trying to connect to the core of what hip hop really was. They were thinking, how do we sell hip hop to that little white kid in Iowa who doesn't know shit about black people, doesn't know shit about struggle, doesn't know shit about living in the Bronx, doesn't know anything about the stuff that's being sold to them. Because remember, a lot of people, I believe, today buy hip hop, they listen to hip hop because there's a fascination with this world that they'll never experience. They enjoy seeing the black man with the gold chains and the tattoos. The same way maybe in the 70s we enjoyed watching Bruce Lee karate movies, and we became so fascinated not with Asian culture at its core, but we became fascinated with Asian people who knew karate. We thought every Chinese person knew kung fu, right? And I think that's kind of what hip hop does. The corporate hip hop, not real hip hop. Corporate hip hop does that kind of for the masses. So if you ask me who the king of hip hop is, I think the king of corporate hip hop might be the guy who sells the most records. But the king of true hip hop, I think you got to go back to the South Bronx, to different boroughs in New York and take a poll. Then you're going to find out who the true king of hip hop is. At least that's my opinion.
Where we are as men, we just understand the equity in our relationship. You know what I'm saying? And the good outweigh the bad.
Okay, we can't hate on her. So let's say she has AIDS. Okay, now let's call her a fat bitch. Like, well, you already said I had AIDS, and so you think you calling me a fat bitch is gonna really hurt me?